everyone. My name is Dr. Hal Bradley. I would like to ask us, each and every one of you, that if you enjoyed these shows, please hit like, share, and subscribe after you view the show. Thank you very much.
Well, hello, world. Welcome to another episode of the Crisis Victory Show. My name is Dr. Hal Bradley. I'm your senior host, and my co-host, Pete Turner, somewhere floating in the background there. Pop in, say hi, Pete. Good morning. Today, we have a very interesting guest. His name is Mick. Like myself, he's a near-death survivor. He's a man of faith, truly based in this faith in Jesus Christ, as am I. And yesterday, when I got briefed about this interview by Pete Turner, I became very, very fascinated in the similarity of a part of a story that we will share today on the show. So without further ado, good morning, Mick. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Dr. Hal. Great to spend some time with you, and I'm doing really well, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I tell you something, when Pete was outlining about the Avalanche incident, and I would also like to extend my condolences about the passing of your child. That I've been a hospice chaplain for 21 years, and I really get it. You know, there's something that changes within us when we lose, if you will, that contact with somebody that we are expected to spend a life with and be with. And so I really want to put my heartfelt condolence to you and your family about that. I do understand.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, today on our story, I'd like to kind of focus on the near-death experience that we have both gone through in our lives, the transformation, if you will, of the moment of reality of the true existence of Jesus Christ, and how the Holy Spirit came into us, came upon us, and not only survived us from a near-death experience, but put us in a capacity, if you will, to come forward to other people on a humanitarian scale and let them know about the way, the truth, and the life of Christ. And I'm really anxious to get into this because I don't know a lot of details about the experience you had. So if we could open up the show and start with that.
Yeah, wow, Hal, we're gonna have to jog through a lot of story in order to cover all that, and that's exciting, man, because I'm fully aligned with you that that's a great place for us to go in terms of getting through all of that. So, let me just kind of rewind. Excuse me. Let's rewind then to November 7th of 2000. Many of your listeners will remember that day when I refresh their memory and tell them that that is election day of 2000. That's the day of the hanging Chad. That's George W. Bush, Al Gore. And I'm a 19-year-old punk kid, fully fueled, Hal, by Coke and Mountain Dew. Okay, those are my two poisons of choice, if you will. And I had been living in Colorado for a period of time, and I'm there at this point on November 7th. And I'm really interested in doing something in the mountains that's better. Okay, and I'm picking my words here very specifically, better than other people. So I elected to do what's called Grays and Torrey's Peak. They are two 14,000-foot peaks outside of Denver. I had previously hiked them, as did so many people that either visit the Front Range of Denver or that live in that area, because you can do them really easily together. They're kind of like just walk your way to the top of one, drop down in between the two of them, and then walk your way up to the other one, and then walk your way back down. And I'm not even using the word hike. It's certainly a hike.
Yeah.
But they're a package deal for so many people, and they're really easy, other than the fact that you're going to 14,000 feet. So I had done that like so many other people, and I wanted to do it better. And I'm, again, choosing that word because that's what my ego was saying. Okay. Don't do it different, do it better. Okay. So I decided, Hal, that I was going to climb the Lost Rat Couloir on Grays Peak. A couloir is like a snow gully or a snow chute. Think of like what people would ski at the top of a ski resort, like the expert skiers, the double black, triple black diamond type of thing that people would ski down. That's what I was going to climb up, and that would put me on the ridge. I would then take the ridge up to the summit of Grays Peak and then do what everybody else does, which is then go over to Torrey's Peak, drop back down onto the trail, and be home for dinner. Well, what ends up happening is that I'm roughly 200 to 300 feet up the ascent of the Lost Rat Couloir. I'm by myself. and I cause the avalanche that ends up sweeping me to the bottom.
How did you cause it, if you don't mind me asking? What happened?
Yeah, so November is a winter wonderland in Colorado. All the mountains are blanketed white. It all looks amazing. It's a great time for photographs, and it is a crazy, practically suicidal time to be in the mountains in Colorado for climbing or really kind of backcountry stuff.
Okay.
Because there's not enough snow in order for the snow to be stable. So there's
Okay.
snow for it to look white and wintry, but there's not enough for it to be stable in any way, shape, or form. So just me ascending up the slope and disturbing the snow as I'm climbing on all fours, because this isn't vertical climbing, but we're far beyond a gradient that would allow you to just walk with just your feet, for example. Okay.
Okay.
Because again, think of something that's very steep that you have to ski down, right? If you were to turn around and go up that, you got to go up that with all fours, as opposed to just being able to, kind of leisurely or casually walk your way up it, essentially. So I end up disturbing the snow to the point where I cause the avalanche. And so I'm kind of face into the slope as I'm climbing up with ice pools and ice axes. And what ends up happening is I hear the distinctive woof sound, which is the snow settling. I look up, I can then see the fracture line. And my immediate reaction is, this is bad. Okay.
Yeah.
My second reaction was to transverse the slope, right? To move perpendicular to the slope and the snow coming down.
Of course.
And so I got one step in that direction to my left and was immediately swept off my feet. And as I was swept off my feet, Hal, I remember thinking to myself, this is going to suck for my family, especially my mom. And then the lights went out.
How interesting, the thoughts that come in that moment as we're facing a near-death experience.
Yeah.
And
what's interesting as well, too, is that I remember that hyper distinctly. I mean, I've told that particular phrase for 25 years, because that's literally how long this has been, because I know exactly what I was thinking right before I was knocked unconscious.
Yeah, man, that's fascinating. What's fascinating about it is the thought that came into mind in the moment of a potential death scenario. As you know, I'm a near-death survivor too. Mine's quite a bit different than yours. I spent 15 years of my life in the Sinaloa drug cartel. I was a smuggler for 6 of those years and spent the additional years developing the Pacific Northwest corridor for the cartel. And at one point, I became the largest in the history of this part of the world in cocaine trafficking. I'm not proud of it, but I'm glad I went through it, because now I can use that knowledge to share with others to maybe help in avoidance of making those mistakes. But getting back to the near-death experience, I got a knock on my door at midnight one night. It was the night of June 6th, June 7th, 2020. And I crawled out of bed and I go to the door, and I have a security gate there because of my 17 years as an undercover operative for the DOJ. I made a lot of enemies in those years. But I was groggy, came right out of a dead sleep, and I noticed this guy on the other side of my screen door. He's wearing a tow truck company hat, and he's got the tow truck company shirt on with the label of the company and his name on it. And so I'm asking him, what can I do for you? And he says, do you own that yellow Corvette Stingray out and back? And I said, I do. And he says, well, listen, I was pulling a car through here and I backed into your Corvette, and I'd like to know if you can come down, take a look at it, and we can get the paperwork started. Well, 10 years earlier, no way in hell would I have ever gone through a door in the middle of the night. There's just no way. My training, my many, many years on both sides of the fence would have just red flagged it. But again, I was groggy. I was unaware. The story kind of made sense to me. So I open up my security gate and I go down the stairs and we go to the back of my Corvette, and I don't see no damage. And he says, well, if you'll drop down to your knee and look underneath by the tank, you'll see where I hit it. And the moment that I dropped on my knee, I knew it was a hit. So anyway, the guy grabs me. He's obviously well-trained in martial arts. He knew exactly what to do to detain me in such a way that I would have I was immobilized. He pulls out a knife that fits between his fingers, and he starts holding my head, trying to stab me at the base of the skull in the back of my head, which is a paralytic point when I was in Tigerland in 1972 in my knife training exercises. This came into my thoughts immediately because it was a tactical move to completely paralyze somebody before death.
Right.
So at that point, I bent my head back up. He wasn't trying to slash my throat or nothing like that. He was trying to go for a specific area. But he grabbed my head and he starts stabbing me on the top of the head. And during this time, I'm wrestling at this point, trying to get away from where he's dragging me, which is commonly known as what they call a kill box. It's a place where you take out somebody, you depose the body, and you exit the scene. And as we're fighting in that direction, I'm using everything in my power. I'm 65 years old at this time. So, I'm an elderly person, but I've had training myself. I knew what was going on. And in the last knife strike to the top of my head, I heard my head pop. And I started losing consciousness. And in that moment, I realized that I was seconds away from death. And I got to tell you something, Mick, when I was in federal prison, I worked as a hospice counselor, taking 24 of my own fellow prisoners through the dying process. So it was an amazing time. I did my seminary studies in those death rooms to get to where I'm at today in my life. But the point is this: when I was going under and I was losing consciousness, I knew that I was dying. And I got to tell you, in that instant, all of these things, all of my cares, all of my understanding, if you will, of this life vaporized instantly. And instead, I felt that I was enshrouded in a love that I cannot describe in any words. I knew that I was in the loving, caring comfort of something greater than I was, something I couldn't understand. And a while later, I don't know how long I was unconscious, but when I kind of came out of it, it was like a lightning bolt hit me and rocked my body and brought me back into a semi-conscious state. I was able to crawl to the back door of one of my tenants. I have a fiveplex up here, and the tenant, they opened the door, and immediately I'm in and out of consciousness by this time and bleeding profusely from the stab wounds. And they 911'd it in. The police got there, and I kept telling the police this was a cartel kill order. I'm a contractor for DOJ. I just got hit. And then I'd lose consciousness. And then I remember my son screaming, "My dad's dying, my dad's dying," which affected me more than any of it, to have my child so traumatically affected, if you will. And then I remember getting loaded in an ambulance, and I passed out. I remember a forensic nurse at the hospital talking to me, and I kept telling her, "This is a kill order. I'm not safe. I'm not in a secured site here. They can come in here and get me just like they get me at my own home and residence." Nobody believed it. Nobody listened to it. And I remember I was comatose for about a day and a half, a medically induced coma, while they were working on me. Mm-hmm. And when I came out of the coma, and immediately I grabbed my cell phone in the bag next to my bed, contacted a friend of mine. He brought up several of our brothers to protect me, if you will. And because I have a doctoral title that was very argumentative for them in trying to keep me in the hospital, they couldn't do it. I signed my release, got the hell out of there, got secured in my home, and spent the next 8 or 9 days in bed because I was still in pretty bad shape. But the point that I'm building up with all this, Mick, is the moment of realization of something that was far greater than myself, something that loved me so much that in a moment of panic, in a moment of acceptance of my death, all of that left. It didn't matter anymore. There was something greater that I really wanted. And I remember my PTSD doctors at the VA more concerned about me committing suicide to try to get myself back to that wonderful place that I had found that I'd never felt before in my life. Well, to me, this was what I call my second confirmation. My first confirmation was in a prison holding cell, or in a jail holding cell, as I was being transported to federal prison to start an 8-year prison sentence. And I remember that day I found out that I had a contract put on my life. My wife served me at divorce papers the day before. I just got sentenced to 8 years in prison, and I was on my way to go do time. And I was so overloaded with all of this grief that I literally dropped to my knees in that cell. And I remember looking up and saying, "If you really are real, please take this burden from me. Please, I can't deal with it." And in that moment, an inmate walked in my cell, kneeled down beside me, put a hand on my shoulder, and started praying. Within seconds, another one did it on the other side of me. So my moment of birthing into my faith and birthing into the salvation that I was generously received from Jesus Christ was October 19th of 1994 at 3:30 in the afternoon. That was my conversion. And I always think of Saul on the road to Damascus when he was struck down and scales were put on his eyes, and how Saul was taken to the house of Ananias, one of the people that he was actually hunting, that was a Christian, that he would round up to take to the lions and feed to the lions.
Yeah.
And Saul was laying there, and Ananias was going, "Oh my God, why did you bring him to my house? Why is this man here?" And he lifted the scales off of his eyes, and the rebirthing of Saul transformed into the Apostle Paul in that instant. And brother, that is exactly what I felt of my conversion the moment that I was in that cell, and the second inmate knelt beside me, and they literally prayed. All the anger, all the fear, all the frustration, it evaporated from me. And Pete, my co-host, as a witness who's known me for years, can absolutely attest to this transformation, because from that instant, I became so hungry in learning about what the heck had just happened to me that I immediately entered into seminarial studies, completed seminary 2.5 years while I was in federal prison, trained to be a hospice counselor, to take other prisoners through it. I was in the media a lot. It was a really big thing. There were 11 of us that were trained, if you will, to become volunteers in the hospice practicums. So we were trained, certified, and that was where we did our work. But Mick, my entire seminary years was done in the death rooms of a federal prison. I would be sitting there preparing somebody to die. And while I'm doing that, I'm cramming in my studies. And it's very, very humbling and very unique. But again, the second confirmation came in that moment when I was laying out there and I felt that last knife strike in my skull. And I knew that within seconds I was leaving this world. So getting back to your story, now that I've shared my near-death experience to you, what was your moment? When was your moment, Mick?
Yeah, Hal. So it's actually a little bit later in life for me. So let me kind of land the Avalanche story and then answer that question really directly.
Perfect.
So, I caused this avalanche, as mentioned. I'm knocked unconscious, and I'm literally out for some period of time. And I come back to consciousness at the bottom. And I had this overall systems check that I did, and kind of felt like everything was to some degree good to go. And that was kind of the central theme for me, that I was still in danger and that I needed to go.
Yeah.
So I went the 3 miles back to the car as quickly as I reasonably could. I think elapsed time for that is probably around an hour and 45 minutes or so. And once I made it all the way back to the trail, because a lot of the portion that's closest to the base of the climb itself is all off trail. And once I made it back to the trail, the snow isn't as deep. The trail is naturally like graded, like more of a normal trail, and it's just easier to travel. And that's when I noticed that I had blood dripping into my right eye, and that every time I touched it, it made it worse. So I just had to make this conscious decision, just leave it alone, let it drip. I was spitting blood, didn't quite know why, but definitely knew something was wrong. And so I eventually make it all the way back to the trailhead parking lot, because my plan, Hal, is to get to my car, get in my car, meaning my pickup truck, get to my truck, get in my truck, drive myself to the hospital, and all will be fine. Well, basically 30 seconds before I walked into the parking lot at the trailhead, a guy by the name of Steve arrives in the trailhead parking lot. He was the only other human being there. And Steve comes up to me and says to me, "What happened to you?" And I matter-of-factly told him, "I was in an avalanche." Like, this is totally normal. You know what I mean? Like, I was in an avalanche. What'd you expect?
Go figure.
Exactly. Who would have thought? And he continues to pursue me because I just walked right by him. Like, I didn't have time to chit chat. I got to get to my truck, get in my truck, drive to the hospital, because I know I'm in bad shape, but have no real understanding of the extent to which I'm in bad shape. Well, the way this particular story ends is that I'm standing by my truck, and I cannot get into my truck because I kept a spare key bolted to the underneath of my pickup truck bed. And that was standard practice for me. The very quick aside for that is that in the event you lose your backpack because something crazy happens in the backcountry, but you can make it back to your wheels, right?
Yeah.
Your key is on your truck, not stuck in your backpack that's lost somewhere. So that's kind of the idea in terms of why I would do that. So I couldn't, though, get down on the ground, shimmy underneath of my pickup truck bed, unbolt the key, shimmy back out from underneath the pickup truck bed, and stand back up. I knew I didn't have that much strength left.
Yeah.
And so I asked this guy, Steve, hey, can you get the key for me? So he gets the key for me. He opens the truck because my goal in this is twofold. One, it's to get my down jacket, my warm, thick down jacket that's in my truck and put it on because it's really, really cold at this point. This is probably sometime between like 4 and 4:30 in the afternoon. So the whole parking lot is shaded. It's very cold. It's already wintry conditions. You know, November isn't officially winter, but it's legitimate winter conditions.
Well, and the body is responding to injury in the same time. So that even amplifies all of the elements that you're in yourself.
Great point for sure.
Yeah.
So Steve gets the car open, and then I go to take off my shell jacket. So think of like Gore-Tex rain jacket, Gore-Tex ski jacket type of thing. And I can't get the zipper down any lower than about the top of my sternum. So at the beginning of this story, I'm this strong ego and Mountain Dew fueled athletic guy. And I'm now standing in front of a complete stranger, unable to get down and back up. And now unable, because I don't have enough strength, to get my zipper all the way down. And there was so much coagulated blood and other bodily fluids that had frozen on the front of the jacket, and I didn't have the strength to get through all of that, that I now have to ask this guy, Steve, a total stranger, and I don't know his name at this point in the story, to literally help me get my jacket off. And that was when it became readily apparent to me that I needed help, because up until that point, I thought I was still good enough to drive myself.
Yeah.
Well,
the fight or flight syndrome. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Adrenaline packed.
Exactly. And so Steve literally has to break the zipper in order for us to get the jacket off. He convinces me to ride in his truck. He takes me to the hospital, which was called Summit Medical Center in Breckenridge, or Frisco, Colorado, excuse me. And they were going to flight for life me down to Denver. So the way this one ends is that I end up with all of my injuries, nearly all of my injuries, all the ones that mattered, to literally, man, my head. So my jaw was broken on both sides. My skull was broken in 3 places. One of those skull fractures was because the skull plate was shoved forward, and that pinched my auditory nerve. So I ended up for a period of time having 0 hearing in my left ear. I've subsequently had some of that recover. And as a result of all of the trauma being to my head, the night of November 7th, that I'm in the hospital, I end up having to undergo emergency brain surgery because of the bleeding and the overall swelling of my brain. So they had to cut a triangle-shaped chunk out of my forehead and literally drain me. And as a result of doing that, they're mechanically creating space to relieve pressure.
Yeah.
So 3 days in the ICU, 6 days overall in the hospital. Essentially all of the King's men put Humpty Dumpty back together again. 3 weeks later, I am back to college and back in the workforce.
That's amazing. Amazing.
But here's the thing. Yeah, praise God for sure. Like, truly.
Yeah.
But I'm 19 at this point, Hal, and I was raised in a Christian household that I rebelled against and from very hard. So I gave God intellectual credit for this being a miracle.
Yes.
But I didn't have any maturity to understand that it was also a miracle with far significantly greater gravity and depth to it. Okay.
Yes.
I just was like, yeah, he saved me by having Steve show up. Okay.
Yeah.
All of which was true, but I only understood it about this much, and I only understood it in my head. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I do.
So 12 years later, I'm now married. My wife and I have been married for a number of years. We decided that when we were married, we were going to be married without children. And then we got to a point after a number of years that we decided now's the time for us to have a family. And I'm using, again, my words here very specifically because it was, we did this, we decided this, then we decided, then we did this, you know? And we get pregnant immediately. Everything appears to be good to go from the obstetrician. And we're now a handful of weeks away from the baby's due date, which would have been January of 2012. And I go out and walk our dogs. We lived in a townhouse. We didn't have any yard or anything like that. So I would walk the dogs in the morning. I come back and my very pregnant wife is standing in the kitchen crying. And I said to her, "Hey, honey, what's up?" And she says, "I haven't felt him move since last night."
Wow.
We make a couple of phone calls. They tell us to go to labor and delivery at the hospital, meaning not the ER. So we go to labor and delivery. And Hal, it was 3 different ultrasound machines that they used, 3 different ultrasound techs, and then 1 MD at that point to tell us what, by this point in that experience,
Yes,
we knew was coming, which was, "I'm sorry to tell you this, but your baby no longer has a heartbeat." So
wow.
we are then overwhelmed by that grace. And this is like the Reader's Digest version, because I want to get really to the answer of your question here. So we're, literally overwhelmed, crying. I mean, it's bad, as you can imagine. And my wife is having another level of what I'll call freak out in addition to grief. And that is that now she's coming to the realization that she has a dead baby inside of her.
Yeah.
Now, that's something that you and I can truly just only imagine. We will never be able to relate to.
Can't even come close to it, brother.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
And she's like, "I got to go to the bathroom." So I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm going to go with you." And, I help her shuffle down the hall. And we've all been in those hospital room bathrooms or hospital bathrooms where it's like the super wide door and it's this cavernous room that they can like park a dump truck in, basically. But there's just one toilet, So she gets to the toilet. I leave the room, close the door. And, to maintain closeness and support of her, I'm right there outside of the door. And this is where I'm going to answer your question. I am so overwhelmed with the weight of the grief that it sounds like very similar to you. What I ended up doing was I was physically moved to my knees from the weight of all of it. So it's not like this conscious decision of like, I'm going to get on my knees and pray. It was, I'm collapsed.
That's exactly what happened to me. I relate to you, brother.
Yeah. And so my face, I'm crying. I'm 6 inches away from the linoleum floor. And I cried out to God that I had, again, intellectual awareness of.
Yes.
And it was at that moment that I was realizing that up to that point, I'm 31 at this point in my life, up to that point, with tenacity, with grit, with a little bit of time, with a little bit of money, with a little bit of teaching from somebody to me, maybe a little helping hand, I'd been able to overcome every challenge that I'd ever experienced. Yeah. And I knew right there on my knees that this was beyond me. I literally couldn't fix it. It was truly beyond me. And so in my desperation, I cried out to God. And that is when the relationship began.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was 13 years ago. And
praise God.
What ends up happening in that is that there was this instantaneous change. And then it kicked off this series that we call sanctification, right, in the Christian faith, of just incremental and sometimes almost imperceptible levels of change on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis, to where you look back 13 years and you think, yeah, everything changed in that moment, but almost nothing changed or seemed like it changed in that moment. And yet I'm a completely, thoroughly, and completely different human being than I
Yes.
was there,
Yes.
by God's grace and by God's grace alone, period. So he gets all the glory.
Absolutely, brother. And that is so remarkable, because the moment that you are conceived in the rebirthing of that which you are. You right. Me too, the same exact thing. In that instant of acceptance. And boy, talk about a life-changing transformation. Oh my goodness. It's beyond beautiful, because now you're aware of something that is far greater, far more beautiful than ever having an understanding of before. And all of a sudden, life's hurdles that come in and confront us and become before us, they're all minuscule compared to the way we looked at them prior to that transformation moment. You got to realize, brother, in 1994, when I received Jesus, I was doing an 8-year prison stint. I was in Leavenworth Federal Prison when I got approached by the Department of Justice. Said, "How would you like to walk out today? Literally, you're gone. We'd like to make you a contractor." And I spent 17 years of my life undercover, going into multiple foreign countries, attacking the very thing that I used to serve just a few years earlier. And in the course of that 17 years, brother, I was kidnapped once, facing death. I was captured in another country once, and 7 weeks in captivity before we were rescued. And every single day of it, I realized, today I'm going to die. And when you live with those kind of thoughts, there was a calmness that came with it. It's indescribable, really, because I had the acceptance of the death, and I had no problem with that whatsoever. And it's supernatural. There's something mythical that comes into our life, that comes into play, that we recognize as far greater. And, getting back to our experiences like that, I remember the moment before I lost consciousness, when I was hit out here and left for dead. Yeah. I remember this absolute acceptance of that moment. And being a hospice counselor, I've got 26 years doing that. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was the founding mother who taught us hospice in the United States. And there's 5 stages to the dying process. And I remember calculating the stages. I remember going through all of that I had done with so many people, taking them through it. Now I'm going through it. And someone like yourself that has faced that moment of a near-death experience are the only people that can truly understand what I'm trying to say, what comes upon us in that moment of acceptance, of knowing that it's all going to be okay. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you used the term that it's supernatural, and I completely agree with you. And I
It
think
is.
It's also really important to distinguish that there's not apathy in that.
Yeah.
No, it's not a peace because it's like, oh, I'm resigned to die. No. It's
far different than that.
This is going to be fine. This isn't the way I want it to go, but this is going to be fine.
It reminds me of the Amazing Grace song. This is the moment I first believed. When you knew the truth, and what you and your wife were going through in that moment was so tragic and so horrifying and so human, if you will. But something greater than that came upon you in that moment when you were on your knees, and you realized that no matter what befalls us in this life that we currently try to understand, it's all going to be okay. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it certainly has helped, later in life with other challenges that just seem to pale in comparison.
Yeah.
And then also just has changed everything for both of us. So I think in a nutshell, what I think it's important for everybody to hear is that, that was the beginning of a relationship with Jesus Christ for me. My wife followed behind that very quickly as we really just poured our hearts out over and over in prayer. And I'm not talking about like a rote memorized prayer. There's nothing wrong with those necessarily. What I'm saying, though, is like we dumped the 4-letter words out to him. We dumped the heartache. We dumped the pain. We dumped the I don't understand out. And he loved us through every bit of it, showed us that what we thought was a Luke-shaped hole, because that was the name we had given our son. We thought we had this Luke-shaped hole in our heart.
Wow.
He showed us that we had a God-shaped hole in our heart. He literally filled it. And loved us through all of it. And that leaves us, my wife and I, in a position today where we will both say out loud, and I'm about to, that the death of our son, as much as we dislike it and certainly wouldn't have chosen it ourselves, is the single most tangible blessing that we have received from God up to this point in our lifetime, because, and this is why I think it's really important, because it changed the trajectory of our lives for eternity.
Yes.
And then we have 3 living children, because Luke was our first. We have 3 living children, and it has changed the trajectory of their lives as well. So God gets the glory for every bit of that.
Absolutely.
But having a dead kid is literally the single biggest, most tangible blessing we've ever experienced. And we've had other big blessings too, don't get me wrong.
How interesting it is that in the moments of our greatest tragedies, that we freely and openly turn to that which is greater, because of our lack of understanding and our inability, if you will, to be able to absorb and function under that moment of extreme and dire stress. So let me ask you about the marriage. How is your marriage today?
Oh man, it's far from perfect, but it has so much goodness in it.
Yeah,
so much goodness. Like the imperfections, if you will, like that stuff's on the edges, you know. And some days those things feel like they're more painful or more valuable, meaningful, whatever, than they really are a lot of the times. But I mean, we just hit 19 years later this year, and
congratulations. That's beautiful.
Thanks, Hal. I mean, if I could spend another 100 years with my wife, I would. Yeah. No question. Like every single day, man, I get up and I sign back up to be with her.
That's beautiful, brother. What a testimony today. And we're getting ready to close out the show now, but one thing I want to do, as I always do with people such as yourself that I have on the show, is ask you at the end of the show, what is the message that you want to leave with my audience today, brother?
Yeah. Well, first off, Hal, thanks a bunch for having me on, man. It's just been great to hear your story and to be able to chat. Like, genuinely, just truly, truly wonderful.
We're brothers in Christ. We're brothers in
100%,
Christ.
Man.
We have
100%. The thing that I would love to pass along based on my personal experience, as well as the experience that I have seen countless times in the guests that I've had on my show, is that when people get to the end of themselves, God, Jesus, however you want to look at him, okay, or think of him, he is there. He is ready, and he is waiting. And so then my encouragement is, just go meet him now if you haven't already met him.
Yeah.
Save yourself the pain that Hal and I have both dealt with. Because it's so much better on this side in what I will describe as real relationship. So I knew of God, but I didn't have a relationship with him.
That's
in
perfect.
The same way that there's famous people that I totally know of, but I 100% don't have any relationship with them. And because I have relationship with God the Father and King Jesus and the Holy Spirit, my life is so much more enriched. And that of so many other people that, because of his direction, I impact. And I don't say that with pride. I'm just saying he's created me and has me impact other people in all kinds of different ways. So to him be the glory.
That's a perfect message, a perfect way to close the show. And, you know, Mick, I want to thank you. You're my brother in Christ. I love you. I send my love to your family. I'm truly honored to meet with yet another true believer and a brother in Christ. And should you ever want me on your show, brother, all you got to do is ask. We'll be glad to share another good Christian story.
Oh, man, I actually would really love that, Hal. So we should talk about that for sure.
We will. I love you. God bless you. And thanks again for being on my show today, Mick.
Cheers, man. Appreciate it.
Okay, folks. Well, that wraps up another episode today. And I'd like to take this moment to thank each and every one of you for taking your time to catch our show. Now, if you like these shows, I would ask that you would please hit like, share, and subscribe. It's so important to us that we get these messages out, and we understand that these are graphic, almost toxic interviews. But this is the kind of impact that we feel is needed in order to make sure that people understand the significance of the problems that we are confronted within our own country and around the globe. So I'm going to say at this time that I love you all. God bless you all. Hasta luego, y vaya con Dios, and go Victors.